Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour, your source for all hard rock, heavy metal, new metal, alternative, punk, horror punk, hardcore, rock, and all local bands with your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bodfather.
Hey, this is Jeff with Illyrian. I'm the bassist and vocalist of that wonderful group, and you are listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
The views and opinions of the guests do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Radio Network, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Radio Network.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I am your host, John the Bod, aka the Bodfather, and as always, I'm bringing you guys and gals awesome interviews, and today it's an honor and a huge privilege to have Mr. Jeff Perry. He's the bassist and backing vocals of Illyrian, and Illyrian is a three-piece metal band from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Illyrian will release their second album, The Entity Unknown, on July 26th. And per the band's comments, and I quote on the album, this record represents a lot for us. So we're going to dive into all this because, honestly, folks, this band has pretty much busted their ass to get this second album out and what they've overcome and stuff like that. So it's cool to see the passion and the fire still there. So, Jeff, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, John. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So how's it been working with Freeman Promotion so far? How's it been working with John?
It's been great, actually. He was recommended to us by the fellow who produced our record, and we made an effort with this one to work with a lot of individuals that we hadn't worked with before, kind of broaden our horizons. And John's just a stand-up dude. You know, you talk to him, it's just like chatting to an old friend. He's very candid with everything, very to the point. You know, if he ever messes up on anything, he's so good at just being like, "Oh, yeah, that was my bad." Like, yep. There's just no bullshit with him, and I really appreciate that about people.
And I wish more folks were like that. You know, if you screw up, hey, admit it. It happens. We're all not perfect, and you will. Even me, I've screwed up a lot. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the right mentality.
So you guys stated, and I quote, "This record represents a lot for us." Let's talk about this a little bit. How much of a fight was this for you guys? Because, I mean, you got knocked down, and you got back up again. So let's talk about that a little bit. How much of a climb was this for this album for you guys?
A big thing that has happened between this one and the first record that we put out is we lost a member, and he was a founding member of the band as well. He was half of the creative side of things. He was, half the songs were his. We kind of parted on not great terms. Some personal stuff happened. And so, out of respect for him and out of respect for the band, we decided to, not continue to use his music. Whatever he left with was his. But as a result, we went from having, a bunch of songs, and we could pick whatever we wanted, to having quite a bit smaller of a pool to pick from, as it were. This ended up working out pretty good for us in the end. I think, honestly, it ended up coming out a lot more consistent. We'd had some concerns that the two creative forces, the other one being Scott Onofrichuk, who is the guitarist in the band at the moment, he and Brandon kind of had some different styles of writing. I think that became evident as we started writing this record, that maybe they weren't quite meeting in the middle on everything, and it felt to me kind of like two different bands worth of music. So, unfortunately, it's the way things panned out. It was regrettable, but I think in the end that is going to be better for us. I think we have a much more concise and honed sound, and I think we have a much better idea of where we want to head from here. And so this album, like I say, it does represent a lot for us, because it is kind of that turning point. It is kind of that laying the foundation for what we're going to do ahead of here.
What's impressed or excited you the most, Jeff, about working and making this new album, The Entity Unknown, if anything? What sticks out the most for you, possibly?
For me personally, I took a much larger vocal role in this album. My vocals are sort of on the first album, kind of just in the background. I'm basically 50% of the vocals on this record, and I also took over lyric writing duties. So most of the lyrics you hear on the record are written by me. There's one particular track, Lobotomist, that our drummer Darren actually wrote the lyrics to. But because of, that was kind of a different form of expression for me. I've never historically been a singer. I've always kind of been more on the instrumental side of things, and being able to, tell a story and have these songs linked together and have the album kind of thematically make sense. That was a really fun process for me.
You guys went through some tough times with a lineup change, like you mentioned, and produced the album down a member. When did you realize that you had to just step back and recharge on this for you guys?
We had kind of like the departure with a member that happened somewhat recently. That was, within the last 6 or 7 months here. And we had kind of been sitting on this record for a little while. In 2016 was the last time we put out the record, and we wanted to kind of keep momentum going. We were really concerned about dropping something in 2020. That's 4 years between albums. That's not exactly how you build momentum and keep moving forward. So after that all transpired, the three of us said, okay, we've still got to put something out here. We got to keep moving forward. We can't just keep sitting on our hands and waiting for something to happen. So that really lit a fire under our asses, to be honest. We busted our asses to make everything work. We had to come up with stuff to make things a little more cohesive based on what we had, because we had a different vision for the album initially. So everything kind of feels like it really came together in the last 6 months here. But I think that in the end, that was probably for the better. And as a result, we're all very, very proud of where the album ended up. And again, I think it speaks so much for where we're headed from here.
Oh yeah, especially when you look back on this and what you guys went through, you could say now for sure, this is Illyrian's music. This is Illyrian, the sound that we want to make. This is us.
Exactly, yes.
Any song standing out more to you than any right now on the new album? I know it must change every time you listen to it. I know you guys are close to them. But for you, do you have any that stick out possibly?
Yeah. I mean, classic artist answer. Some days I love one, some days I love others. Sometimes I love the whole record. Some days I'm like, oh my God, I should quit doing music. What am I doing here? I'm a very big fan of the title track, The Entity Unknown. I think it's quite different from the rest of the songs, kind of this more neoclassical feel to it. It's a little bit less on the death metal-y side and more just kind of a fun, upbeat. There's a lot of major keys in it, which is quite different. We have this idea that we might actually do that with a lot of our title tracks or final tracks on our albums, where it just kind of comes out on a nice, happy, uplifting, energetic note. I think that's really understated, especially in metal. A lot of metal is just all seriousness all the time, death and destruction. And you're like, that's fine. It's got a time and a place. But sometimes you just want to have fun with it, So I really like that one. Another one that sticks out for me is the single we just released. That one's called Aminar Rising. That one's got a really great middle section where we brought in a lot of percussion instruments and just tried some different textures of things, and got really playful with it. And live, when we get to that part, we kind of do a little interlude, and we pull some audience members up on the stage, and I hand them a tambourine, hand them a cowbell, and we get them outside along us, and just all rock out together. And that's something that I think you don't do that at all in metal, really. That's kind of in other genres of music, and I think that's also really understated. I really like crowd interaction and getting people into it, and it's just a big old party at the end of the day, right?
Hell yeah, man! You can't go wrong with cowbell and a tambourine. You cannot go wrong with it.
Exactly. Everybody wants to wail on a cowbell. That is human nature right there, my friend.
Oh, you could take one song that's actually too loud, or you don't like it. You can grab a tambourine and just fuck it all to hell and make it sound good.
Exactly.
It's like, take that.
Yeah. There's very, very low skill ceiling for being able to pick up a tambourine and shake it slightly on tempo,
That was going to be my next question about this album with the songs. Are they one on there for you possibly that's going to be an underrated song that you think may not get the full respect that it should?
It's tough to say. I think for me, a big theme that we wanted to draw on, or one rather that we have drawn on before, is we've always tried to make our lyrics not super serious, going back to that whole thing about metal always being very doom and gloomy. Our previous album was a lot of video games. It was a lot of comic book theme type stuff, very kind of fun, fictional type things. And there are a few tracks on this one that are like that. For instance, the first track, Void, is about the manga Berserk. The song Grant Us Eyes is about a video game, Bloodborne. If you've played the game, that name will immediately step out to you.
Yes, sir.
But there's other tracks like The Entity Unknown, the title track, and the track Xanthus, that are kind of more Lovecraftian in nature and kind of more abstract type monstrosities. I think really a theme with all the tracks is there's some sort of monster or demon, and in some ways, like some tracks are kind of having fun with that because it's about a video game or about a comic or whatever. And other tracks like Lobotomist, that one's more about like anxiety and mental kind of stuff, which is a little different for us. I think if I had to pick one, probably Lobotomist would be that track because it is kind of the one that's a little more different. It is a little more personal. That's the one that the lyrics were written by our drummer, Darren. And I think that one kind of stands out lyrically from the other ones. If I had to pick another one, it's the track Recipe for Disaster. That one, we literally had the idea to just like, let's make a recipe and make that the chorus for a song. And so if you listen to the lyrics, it's about, it's a guy on a cooking show and he's like talking to the crowd, and then the chorus is this recipe that he's making up. And it's just kind of, we just had fun with it, like if we do a music video for it, I think it's going to be pretty goofy. I think stuff like that is really understated in metal. It's too serious all the time, and we're just here to have a good time.
Now, you guys self-produced this album, correct?
Self-produced with a buddy of ours, a fellow named Brett Reed, who's up in Edmonton in Alberta in Canada.
So do you guys like having the control to do this when you want to? I mean, or do you want to work with a producer eventually?
Yeah, I mean, Brett, he was a rock star. We consider him a producer. He had a lot of really good ideas. He was also very good at pointing out things that he maybe didn't agree with. We think very much by the end of this that he was very much the fourth guy on the album. I should say, we also had a guest guitarist come in and do some solos here and there, so he was definitely a big part of it. But I think that we kind of feel like Brett really understood us. It helps that he's around our age. He's kind of had a similar upbringing. He's in a similar kind of scene, so he gets what our deal is. And it is self-produced, but it's produced in collaboration with Brett. So I think to say that we produced it entirely ourselves is unfair. I think Brett's role in it was very key.
Now, you guys released the first single off the album, lyric video Aminar Rising. Was it hard to choose between the current set of songs on the album, which would be the first single, let alone a lyric video or anything for you guys? Yeah,
it was difficult. Something you hear with singles is you needed to grab attention in the first minute. And that's all well and good. We think that Aminar Rising, it kind of encapsulates the most of the album. It's got the fun, upbeat sections. It's got the different lyrical styles. It's got the blazing solos and the fun, hooky chorus. It really was, when you take a step back, we're like, what song embodies the album the most in its 4-minute length? And that was the one we picked.
Who did the cover art for the album for you guys?
So there's a fellow named Josh Andrew Bellinger, and I think he's out of New Jersey. I'm sorry if I fucked that up, Josh. He's actually somebody that we've been working with for many, many years. Once upon a time, this band was under a different name, and at that point, I guess Scott had approached somebody to do the cover art, and he was too busy, but he was like, hey, but talk to my buddy Josh. I'll help you out. And Josh is a tattoo artist by trade, and he's got a very comic book style. So that's how we first, we saw that and we said, that's sweet. We should get that. We should keep working with that guy. And so here we are. He's produced all our merch designs. He produces all our album covers. We have a really good working relationship with him. We've never met the guy in person, but we have a dream one day to go down and maybe get some tattoo work done by him, because that would be really fitting, we think.
What do you hope everyone takes away from this album, Jeff, or message you hope to hear while listening to it, or just any of Illyrian's music in general? What do you hope someone takes from it?
I think, messages they're subjective, obviously. Like, honestly, we just want people to enjoy the music. We want people, when they see us live, to see how much fun we have with it. It's hard to do these kind of things with an album, you kind of have to do things a little cut and dry when it comes to recordings. It's hard to capture that live energy sometimes. And I think we did a good job at striking a fine balance there. But I think really what we want out of it is people to listen to it front to back and say, holy shit, that was a good record. What's my favorite track? I can't even pick one. I have to go see these guys live. And they see us live, and they get the opportunity to get up on stage and play tambourine and cowbell in that one segment, or just, be part of the culture that we're trying to create here, be part of the experience that we're trying to create.
Do you see this band still musically growing from where it started, or has it just been more of a personal growth for all of you guys involved in Illyrian?
Yeah, a bit of column A, a bit of column B. I think that we definitely have a lot of room to grow musically. I think that given the lineup changes that kind of it also changes, who's doing some primary writing. Both Darren and I we come from different backgrounds from Scott. Scott's quite classical, quite technical, and very metal focused, whereas Darren and I kind of come from more punk and hardcore backgrounds. I've got a little bit of folk background as well myself. I play instruments like the Irish Buzeki, which actually makes an appearance on this album. So, we're trying to play with different textures, play with different colors, and where that ends up going from here, it's tough to say, but I think that we want to kind of push the envelope a little bit. We want to see if we can do something a little more with what we've got, and I think we've got a stronger foundation, understanding how we work together and what we do best, and how to best capitalize on adding on top of that.
When you're coming into the recording studio, do you like to do anything differently during that writing and recording process to help keep your mind fresh and open to not let the music get stale or get bored with it? I mean, I know you're the bassist and you're the backing vocals, but do you like to do anything to get away, to not get bored with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? The studio, when you're self-producing, it's a bit of a breakneck pace. You only have so many hours because you only have so much money to work with. And so you don't want to cut corners necessarily, but you have to be smart going into it. You can't be sitting there figuring things out on the spot. So we have a pretty clear sense. We put a lot of time and effort into pre-production. I think any band that doesn't do that, you are doing yourself a disservice, because you're just going to be sitting there kind of floundering in the studio. And if you have your own studio and you have all the time in the world to produce your album, then great, do that. But I think it's a pretty classic artist trap to produce something and then look at it in hindsight and go, I'll change this. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll change that. And suddenly, weeks tick by and you're no further along. And so for us, it's just a matter of like, okay, here's 95% of the vision. That last 5%, we're open to interpretation, but like more or less, we have a very clear understanding of what the album should sound like, what we want it to sound like. And then presenting that makes it a lot easier to work with somebody like a producer, because, they can get behind the vision. They understand, here's what we're trying to do with it. How do we get there?
What can fans expect at a show from Illyrian who have not got to see you guys live as of yet? What are they going to get when they come to see you live?
I think that they will be surprised at how much fun we have with it. I think that we like to do a lot of bantering. We often made jokes that we kind of do the no effects thing and kind of rib each other on stage, and like, we have parts where we get the crowd involved. And I know it's cliche as fuck to say, but we're trying to do something a little different than just sitting up there windmilling and headbanging and looking at our guitar fretboards and playing a million fucking notes a minute. Like, that's all well and good, but we're here to have fun. And I think that it's most fun for us when the crowd is feeding off that energy and reciprocating their own energy back at us. Because it's hard as fuck when you play to a crowd just standing there with their arms crossed looking at you. And if that's what you want to do, fine, that's cool, but that's not really what we're about. So, get out there, move around, have some fun, drink a few beers. That's what we're all about.
Oh, I love no effects, man. When they start doing their jokes in between the sets, that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Just stuff like that, right? Like, it's just such a fun and unique experience. You listen to No Effects on an album or whatever, and yeah, that's great. That's No Effects. That sounds awesome. Yeah. You see them live, you're like, oh, I get it. I get where that comes from now. That's what we're trying to do. I remember seeing No Effects, and it was right after Trump got elected, and Fat Mike, he was just like, it was really not what I expected. He was like quite sad about things, and it was almost jarring because I'd seen him before, and he was so lively. He's such a funny dude, and then seeing him like that, you're like, man, that's just a dude on a stage playing music. Like, he isn't putting on an act. Like, he is just here being him. Yeah. And that's sweet. Like, I really like that about performers.
So we're living in the digital era of recording albums to get music out quicker. Now we've got social media to reach out to more folks to hear of Illyrian. Do you like this that we're in right now?
You're asking the absolute worst guy in the band for this part, unfortunately. I myself actually don't have social media at all. I dabbled for a little while and for a few years, and honestly, it just wasn't really for me. I personally don't get much out of it. I think that you can't ignore it. I think it's part of definitely artist culture. It makes sense. It's a medium that gets your work out there, and I totally get it. Unfortunately, I am not the one to ask in this band about how our social media presence is or how we do with it. Like, the other guys could talk your ear off about that, and I pretty much just give them the thumbs up and say, "Give her, boys."
What made you want to become a musician? What was that spark for you, Jeff, that said, "Yeah, that's what I want to do"?
So, when I was but a wee young lad. I was, as we do when we're kids, I was put in piano classes, I was put in sports and all this kind of stuff. I never really took to sports in any kind of serious way, but I did quite like music, and so I studied classic conservatory piano for 4 or 5 years. And then I discovered punk music. And that was right around that like adolescent phase where I'm like, yeah, fuck you, mom and dad, I'm going to go do this. And so I stopped going to piano lessons. I bought a guitar with my pittance salary I was making at my whatever job at the time. And it was right around the time that like YouTube was starting to become a thing and gain traction. So I was like, cool, I'm just going to teach myself how to play guitar. And so here we are, 15 years later. And yeah, I just never really looked back, and I've always been kind of drawn to punk and metal. I just really love the energy. I love how engaging it is to listen to play. And it evokes a lot of feelings inside me that I'm like, yeah, this is sweet. Okay, cool, I'm down with this. And, it's funny, I often get people saying, why metal? Like, well, clearly you're a talented musician. Why are you playing metal? And I'm like, well, I get that for a lot of people it can maybe be something that's more of a phase or, oh, they listen to that when they're angry kind of thing. But, to me, I don't really want to play. I find the music quite engaging and quite fun to play and perform, and that's really all there is to it,
So what punk band was it, man, that really turns you on to it? I know you like NoFX, but was it NoFX or what band was it?
But NoFX was huge, absolutely. Old school AFI, if I had to really pick one.
Oh, nice.
Like Answer That, Stay Fashionable. Like, holy shit, I think I spun that record so much it broke my record player. Like it was, bands kind of in that era. Rancid was a big one, obviously, and then kind of more modern ones. Like I got really into Rise Against this before they kind of got quite big and changed into who they are now. Just off the top of my head, I don't listen to as much punk these days, but I definitely still love it. Even like funny, like I don't want to say funny, but even like subgenres like ska, I think kind of have their offerings. And it's not for me all the time, but you go to a ska show and it's like quite a different, unique facet of punk, right? Like, a lot of punk shows, like people are just hammered and like doing whatever, and that's sweet. I totally get that vibe. But ska shows, everybody's just bopping along and like, the trumpets and trombones are going. I'm like, this is how you have fun.
Yes,
this
sir.
Is good stuff.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Ska music is fucking unbelievable. I mean, like,
right? Yeah.
It
is an experience to see live.
Like for me, for punk, I mean, you got to go back to like Cro-Mags. You got to go back to like Lagwagon.
Nice, good choices.
Bad Religion, stuff like that. I mean, they really opened up a huge door for me. Gob, another band. Jeez, so many punk bands that I listened to from back in the day that I owe a lot of thanks to, for sure.
Yeah.
The music was just angry. It was like, this is our time. We're going to do what we want to do. You're not going to tell me what to do. And there's the fucking door if you don't like it. And that's,
exactly. Yeah.
And that's what
and as an angry adolescent, that really resonates with you.
I'm going to eat this candy bar. I ain't going to eat your freaking protein shake shit.
Yeah, exactly. And I probably stole it from your fucking store because fuck you. Yeah. Exactly.
Is there a country that stands out or shocks you that Illyrian gets support from, or your music even gets played in that area, possibly?
Yeah. So again, this probably goes back to social media demographics, and again, I'm the shittiest one in the band to ask this to, but I know we get a lot of playtime in Western Canada. That makes sense. That's our backyard. We tour and stuff in that area, so that makes sense to us. Our drummer is from the UK, so he knows a lot of people back home. So we see the odd, streams of stuff coming from that side of the world. We'd love to break out into the United States. So far, we haven't got as much traction as we were hoping for. We're just going to keep trying and keep pushing into that market. We haven't had the chance to tour down there yet, unfortunately. So, maybe that's something. One kind of funny side effect we get is we get a lot of attention from like the Balkans area, like Eastern Europe. And so we didn't know this when we named the band Illyrian, but there is a region referred to as Illyria, where it was, in ancient Roman times, there was a province of Illyria. And so every once in a while we get these messages from Eastern Europeans being like, hey, are you guys actually Illyrians? And we're like, no, we didn't realize that was a thing when we made the band name, and here we are now. And it only happens once in a while, but that's kind of a fun twist on things. They're like, oh yeah, people like literally across the world are like, hey, we saw your name. And so, that's bad. I guess that's just something we have to deal with now. But
is there a band on the bucket list for you that you would like to tour with, or maybe even do one of those old school album splits with, possibly?
Yeah, we are very Revocation inspired. Scott actually takes guitar lessons with Dave Davidson. I think that would be fantastic to do something with them. I'm a big fan of bands like Battlecross. My vocal style is particularly inspired by Necrogoblicon. I think Necrogoblicon are a great example of like, that is the kind of thing we want to do. Like those guys know how to party on stage, you know, like that's, I think something like in that vein would be like my ideal, I think.
I like John Goblicon.
Yeah, right. How could you not? How could you not like just the average goblin? You know, he's just an insurance broker trying to get by. You know, just an average goblin.
You know, get him a chair. You know, he's going to do some wonders for us. So you don't like the band? Well, fuck you. Get off here.
his love for Chili's. Oh man, that is how you do a fucking gimmick. That is how you do it.
You do know that he has a book that is out or coming out, if I'm not mistaken.
I did not. No, that's excellent, dude.
I did not know that till I was on here looking at some stuff, and it said John Goblicon's book is coming out. And I had to do a double take because I was like, "Is this for real?" And
is this for real? Yeah, like
it
yeah,
is.
that is taking a joke and running with it.
And I was like, "Yeah, it's absolutely for real," because there's a link there for it and everything. And I was like, "Now that's fucking awesome. That is just
good for
awesome."
him.
So, man, I just gotta say, thank you guys for your music and for not even giving up for what you guys went through, for sure, because lots of bands would just quit. They would just said, fuck it, we're done.
Well, thank you for saying that, John. I do appreciate that.
How can folks stay in touch with you guys, Jeff, buy some merchandise, tour dates, tickets, things like that, whenever all this goes down? How can they do that, good sir?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can find us on the usual social media channels. I don't believe we're on Twitter, but we are on Facebook, on Instagram. You can just find us using Illyrian, or Illyrian Band is another way to find us. We've also got a website that is illyrianband.com. That's got a bio about it. It's got our merch store. It's got our upcoming shows, all that kind of good stuff on it. So that's one way to keep in touch. But yeah, I think Facebook, Instagram, those are going to be the things we're going to be posting the most frequent up-to-date stuff on, and probably the best way to stay in touch with us if you want to follow us.
And before I let you go, good sir, would you care to do a promo for the show?
Yes, hell yes. How could I do that for you? What's the best way I could do that? All right. Hey, this is Jeff with Illyrian. I'm the bassist and vocalist of that wonderful group, and you are listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We've got some great stuff coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour and BODS Mayhem Radio Network. Get out and check out our Facebook page. It has our podcast link, YouTube link, and soon our Twitch link. And also, get out and check out the band Illyrian. You will not be disappointed. Please give this band a chance, good folks. And I wish you guys the best of luck, Jeff, from here on out, good sir.
Cheers. Thanks so much, Sean. This has been great.
You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.